Now, I'm about 6 to 9 months late to the party on this one, but I really wanted to introduce you to this book. This book was sent to me by the publisher, Red Will Weiser, for the purposes of doing an honest review. It was a gift, and so we're going to do an honest review of it right now. It's a phenomenal book. I have a lot to say about it, and if you're interested, please hang out. I took some notes because it took me a long time to read this book. I'm gonna be very honest with you. It took me a while to read it, to digest it, to really let it get into me. Okay, so I had to take a lot of notes during that long time that it took me to really get it. So it's phenomenal. It's beautifully written, and I want to tell you all about it. My name is QueenAusetHeru, and thank you for joining me for the wonderful edition of Asking Aquarius. If you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button and smack the bell. Also, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and pass it on to everyone and anyone that you know. Okay? Everybody. Your whole hamlet. Your whole neighborhood, you know? If you want to get a reading done, please hit me up. My information will be underneath this video. I love doing readings. That's one of the biggest things that I do. Let me see what else. My Patreon is underneath this video if you would like to join us over on Patreon. I often give exclusive videos on Patreon, and I'm thinking about for the new year doing some like meet and greet, type Zoom conversations or something. I want to get to talk to you guys more, so I think that would be fun. But anyway, all my information will be underneath this video. Oh, and I'm going to put underneath this video a link to this book. I think everybody, and when I say everybody, I mean everybody, regardless of what your socioeconomic class is, whatever, I don't care. Your gender, I don't care. Everybody should read this book. Okay, so the link will be first underneath the video. So let's talk about this book. Why am I so into it? This book is for people who I would say are into tarot and are very familiar with the first part of the deck, the major arcana. This book has one chapter dedicated to each of those cards. So let me get my notes and let me explain what I think about this book. You already know that I'm fond of it, but there are a lot of amazing aspects to this. First of all, my first note says that this book is for anyone. Remember, I said everybody should read it, who is ready to raise up and change the world. It accomplishes this by first teaching us how to change ourselves. This book is about proactive change. Okay? It's about using the major arcana to look at your own bigotry and the bigotry that is going on in the world. And I thought this was important, and that's why I said I think it can change the world, because it teaches you to change yourself. That's something that I've really learned about trying to help people heal over the years. When I was a young girl, I'm Aquarius, so when I was a young girl, I was very idealistic. I wanted to change the world. That song by Eric Clapton was my jam. I played it all the time. But I realized that in order to change the world, I needed to help people heal themselves, because that's the problem in the world. The hatred, the bigotry, the negativity, that's us. It's what's inside of some of us. All of us. And we can change that. You have the power to change your shitty ways. Okay? I'm telling you to your face. We all do. And that's what this book teaches you to do. It's not just saying you have the power and then just, okay, the end. It's like you have the power, and I'm going to show you steps, practical measures on how to do it. That's why this book is life-changing. Let's go to my next note. This book is intense. That's why it took me 6 to 9 months to finish it. It is intense. Some parts made me cry. Some parts made me really think. Some parts made me extremely reflective. So it took me a while. And yes, it's very intense. And not for the weak, I said. It requires courage to look your shadow in the eye. A lot of people don't heal. They don't change. They don't grow. And one of the biggest reasons why is because they refuse to look at themselves. They refuse to look at their own ugly and say, you know what? I don't have to be this. I can change this. And so that's what I was talking about here, because if you look at your own shadow, if you look at your own stuff, that's what changes the world. All of us changing ourselves on the inside, one at a time, or 10 at a time, or whatever the case is. That's what changes the world. Us, because we are the world, literally. That old song from the 80s, that's literally who we are. This book lives up to its title. It definitely offers sincere, loving work that is simultaneously hard but necessary for a better tomorrow for all people. And it does. It's work. She gives exercises, and I'll talk more about them as we go along, but it's literally work. It's literally inner work to do on yourself. And it's not just fluff work. It's not just, take a salt bath. It's not that kind of thing. Some of that is in there, though, which I really appreciate. But also there's practical stuff, as you're about to see. Let me see. The tone is wise, intense, and powerful. This author is very those things. Wise, intense, and powerful. And you hear that in her tone, and how she comes across in this book. It's easy to read and comprehend. She does use some terms, a couple things I had to Google, just a few though. So she explains them though, and she gives you further reading as well. So there's a lot of information here, but it wasn't hard to read and comprehend it. It was easy. It's just for me, it was really just listening and thinking and, really digesting it. So it wasn't hard. It was very simple to comprehend because, you get what it's saying. It's in your face, but it just takes I think it takes all of us a while, especially when we're looking at ourselves. It takes us a while to be like, yeah, okay, that acceptance part. It marries spiritual and practical behaviors to create change, i.e. crystals and forms of protest. So remember I said it wasn't just spiritual, it wasn't just woo-woo, it wasn't just that, because I feel like you need both. You need the marriage of spiritual along with the practical. So it may tell you, get your favorite crystals before you go out and protest, but go out and protest. Or it may say something like, do a manifestation candle before you go vote. Something like that. But it's telling you both sides of it. And this is very important to me because as a priestess, I tell people I don't just sit around wishing for things to happen. That's part of the process, part of the manifestation process. But there's also a practical part to manifestation. When you receive divine guidance and inspiration, you follow it practically. So she talks about that as well. So I love that marriage because to me, that's the only way spirituality really works for us. She mentions often and has a great understanding of astrology and its significance with each card. Now, all of us that do tarot knows that astrology is married to all the cards in some kind of way. For example, the Aquarius card is the star. So if you're an Aquarius, look up the star card and you'll see, there's, these connections, correspondences between the zodiac and the tarot cards. So she has a really good understanding of that and illustrates that throughout the entire book. She illustrates how the cards relate to each other as well. And that's something that's really important as a reader, is to know how the cards relate to each other. Oftentimes, it can enhance the meaning of your reading if you can see that. She illustrates how the cards relate to each other numerically and energetically. She shows scholarly knowledge of Black history and the Black experience. This is very important. I was an African American history major in college. That's what my bachelor's and my master's are both in. And it's all about Black history all the way back to Africa. So it was awesome. I got to read about our history, our ancestors. It was great. I even took a trip to Ghana during that time to see, the culture, firsthand. So she shows a real knowledge of that. And the Black experience, because all of us have different experiences depending upon what your history is. You know, if you're European, you have a different experience. If you're Canadian, you have a different experience. So it's really cool how she has a knowledge of that experience and talks about that knowledge throughout the book. I thought that was really cool. The suggested readings and exercises are perfect additions to the book. So she suggests further reading, which is really helpful because for a lot of people, they don't know all of this stuff. So they read this book, they learn all this stuff, they want more information, you know, and it's right there. So there's lots of further readings and there's exercises. There's practical, once again, practical things to do. So spiritual things and practical things. Going to a protest, writing your congressman. But it was a lot of them. I mean, she had a lot of them. Let me take a chance and read to you something that I really love from this book. She says, racist. One who is supporting a racist policy through their actions of inaction or expressing a racist idea. Anti-racist. One who is supporting an anti-racist policy through their actions or expressing an anti-racist idea. So I love that because, and this one in particular, I love this because this all ties back into what I was talking about. This is the Tower card, by the way. That's where you can find that at, on page 188. So I thought it was very interesting here because, again, we're tying this vibration together. Let me read you one more thing before I get back to my notes, because this impressed upon me heavily too. We fight our beasts with love. This is soft power. This is care. This is an intimate passion with multivarious forms. I thought that was so beautiful because I feel like we cannot fix these problems through hatred. We can't fix these problems through burying our heads or inaction either. But I think that we have to look at solutions that are going to be helpful to us all. So that's an example of something that I really liked about the book. And I also wanted to give you an example. Wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I bump that? Of, let me see, exercises that she has. Remember I said she had all kinds of things you could do? All right, let me see. So, I want to give you something real quick. That is something that she gives as an example that you can do. Here go an exercise. Check out the climate change in the African American community. Fact sheet by Mom's Clean Air Force. And adopt at least one practice from the What You Can Do About Climate Change section. Number 2, research Cancer Alley and reflect upon your learnings. So you see how, and that's not the Tower card. This is a different card, I think. Or was it the Tower? This is Strength. So what I liked about it, see how practical that is? It's like, look up this paper, read about what's going on with the climate, you know. It's very practical, and there's pages and pages of stuff like that. So if you're not certain about the climate, if you're not certain about the earth, if you're not certain about these things, she gives all this information on how you can get very certain and do your own research. Like, she doesn't expect you to just take her word for what she's saying. It's like, take my word for it if you want to, but do your own research. Really see for yourself what's happening out here and how it's affecting you and your world. She shows a lot of understanding about race and racism, as we just saw. There's much more than that. The mechanics, the consequences, she goes into all of that. And it's not just consequences for one group of people, it's how it affects us all. She calls us all out on how we perpetuate racism in our society. And not just racism, bigotry, and other things as well. You know, basically hatred. She calls us all out on our hatred and how we can change that in ourselves. She encourages us to call out others, including our own family and friends. How many of you have family and friends who are terribly inappropriate? They say things all the time that are inappropriate about race, class, gender, people's bodies. You know, how many of us went to Thanksgiving dinner and cringed every time Uncle Joe had another beer and talked crap about somebody in the family or on television, you know? And so she's telling us, don't just sit there and, take it. Don't just sit there and ignore, oh, that's just Uncle Joe. No, sit there and tell Uncle Joe. Well, I don't know if I would tell Uncle Joe if he was amped up off beer, but I would tell Uncle Joe at some point, your behavior is inappropriate, and here is why. She said that we need to have these conversations with our family and friends as well. We're expecting, the government or policy changes. These are big things, yes, but we also need to change ourselves and our environment. So allowing people to be hateful in your environment is not good either. Many of us know that. And she calls us out on that. The author is raw. She's raw, real, and in your face, encouraging you to recognize where and how you can make and support lasting change. I guess that's pretty much self-explanatory, but I just feel like it keeps coming back to the changes being inside of us. I love that because it's not like this external force. I hate when people blame external things for their mistakes, like the devil made me do it, kind of thing, I'm like, look at how you contribute. Most of the times when I have a client who's really struggling, it's because they won't accept where they're messing up. And the more I point it out, the more some of them get mad at me. But I'm Aquarius. I'm going to keep pointing it out. She makes it clear that She makes it clear that Black, Indigenous, and people of color are all affected as well as society at large. So it's like she's pointing out how we all are suffering from hatred. And it's not just one group, it's global. Let's see. She illustrates how different forms of oppression are interconnected, such as race, class, gender, and sexuality. A lot of people are being oppressed because they fall into all or many of these categories. And she shows how they're interconnected and how it affects people on a daily basis. I love the quotes at the beginning of the chapter. At the beginning of each chapter, she does a quote. Let's see if we can find a nice one. Let's look at the Fool. He's the first one. The quote for the Fool is, "We are the ones we've been waiting for." See, it goes right back to us. We are the ones. Look for me. This is the High Priestess. Look for me in the whirlwind or the storm. That one is by Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And the first one, The Fool, I didn't tell you who that was by. That was by June Jordan. So at the beginning of each chapter, for each tarot card, there is a different quote by someone. And she tells you who each person is. And I just thought that was beautiful. And I use a lot of those quotes on my Facebook page. So it helped me think. It really helped. It goes along with the overall theme of the chapter. I love the journal prompts. Oh, yes. At the end of the chapter. At the end of the chapter, after you done sat there and got smacked in the face. You done got smacked up. Then you sit there and you write how you feel, what you thought, what you didn't know, what's beautiful, what's awful, It really helped you to move through the material because the material is heavy, but like I said, necessary. I love the affirmations in each chapter. Each chapter has beautiful affirmations. You could take them and put them in your phone, or you can use the ones, that are helpful to you. The book really makes you reflect and think. I talked a lot about that. And that, to me, is the best part of it because a lot of people don't reflect, they don't think, and they don't talk about this kind of stuff. And it's really important. I love the suggested activities. We talked about those in each chapter. Books to read, causes to research. So in each chapter, we saw the exercises and the activities. That part is what I'm talking about. That is really awesome. So it helps you to again, remember I said do your own research and open your mind. I love how she offers a fresh look at the meanings of each card. So that was my last one. So as you can see, I got a lot from reading this book. I can imagine this book being very controversial because I've talked to people on more than one occasion and told them that I felt a lot of racial tension in the tarot community. But it's not just the tarot community, it's the world. I see racial tension between different groups everywhere I go. Right now I'm in Costa Rica. I see it everywhere. I see it being more prominent in some places, I'm going to tell you. I see it heavy in the United States. So I see it heavier in some places than others, but I see it everywhere. You know, hatred, race, class, gender, sexuality, those kind of things, they're global things. They're just human things. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can be touched by this hatred. And like I said, what I love about this book is that it teaches you how to see it in yourself and change it. You know? So, like I said before, if we can change ourselves, we can change the world that we live in. Most people I know, regardless of their political affiliations, regardless of their race, regardless of their class, most people I know have read, I know out in the world, most people are unhappy with the state of the world as it is. A lot of people are. Now, I know some people are happy-go-lucky about it. I don't know any of them. Everybody I know is unsatisfied with some aspect of the world, okay? But my thing is, the only way to change it is for us to change ourselves, because we're the ones who are creating it. We're creating the negativity. We're creating the dysfunction. We're creating the narcissism. It's us. And it's not all of us creating everything, but we're all contributing to different things that adds up. So if you can say, hey, I'm going to stop pointing the finger at my mom. I'm going to stop pointing the finger at those around me. I might mention their behavior. Yeah, like I said, call out Uncle Joe. But I'm going to look at myself 90% of the time. And I'm going to see, how am I contributing to issues in society? How am I perpetuating stereotypes? How am I encouraging hatred? So I just wanted to point this book out to you in case you hadn't seen it, because when I read it, it spoke to me. I think it speaks to everybody. As I was sitting there thinking, do I do that? It was certain things in there that hit me, and I'm just like, okay. Or am I doing enough for climate change? Am I doing enough for the earth? We live here, and there's all this conversation around that. There's so much conversation around healing each other, healing ourselves, healing the planet. So I heavily recommend this, and you can use your tarot cards, like I said, with the book. For example, let's say I wanted to wake up and say, what topic should I address today? What topic should I deal with today? And I pull out my cards, start shuffling, right? And I get, bam, the star. Then I turn to that page in the book. I turn to the chapter on the star, and I read to see what does it say for a quote. You can't separate peace from freedom, because no one can be at peace unless they have their freedom. Malcolm X. So then I can read this, I can read the chapter, I can go through, I can think about, the questions that are asked. I can do the suggested exercises, and I'll tell you one. A suggested exercise number 2 says, buy or borrow a copy of Black Imagination, curated by Natasha Martin. 3, envision what reparations that include rest would look like. 5, if you have the means, send money to people of color to create more leisure in their lives. Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. So I could be reading this and then go all the way to the end. Remember, I told you at the end, we have some journal prompts. So here's one. Define the roles and responsibilities of a teacher. Know the root. How are your local public schools funded? Describe the school to prison pipeline. So a lot of this, not only you can, journal, but it also requires some reading, because you might not know the school to prison pipeline. I do, because I read about it in college. So that's something that you may need to Google, and now you have more knowledge. You see? So you could use it very randomly. I didn't use it that way. I used it by chapter. I went through chapter through chapter through chapter. And that's why it took me 9 months to get through it, because I was reading every little thing. I didn't read like all of the exercises, but I read them all just to see what they were about and to see if I was familiar with it or not. And there was a lot of stuff in here I was not familiar with. So I recommend you get this book if you want to become part of the change, part of the healing, part of the solution. Okay? So my name is QueenAusetHeru, and thank you so much. And you come back soon, because I got a lot more to say. See you later.